Good morning, everybody. This is a live emergency update as we have southern U.S. snow continuing, including around the Augusta, Georgia area. And we had this bright banding near Atlanta, too, which is starting to warm up a little bit. But this bright banding looks like 70 plus dBz right here. But this is actually when you get a little bit of melting of the dendrites and snowflakes, and they get some of that water. Those water droplets that form on the outside, and it makes them look a lot bigger than they are from the perspective of the radar reflectivity. So that's what's happening right here in between Columbia and Augusta, Georgia. You got all this bright banding, 70 plus dBz. That includes the I-20 corridor from Augusta up toward Columbia. And definitely getting some 3-star snow down there. I just saw on the active surface map. And this also impacted the Atlanta area too earlier this morning, and still getting some frozen precipitation just to the northeast of Atlanta. That bright banding has shot just a little bit to the northeast. So on I-85 to the northeast of Atlanta, that's where a lot of this snow is happening now. And it looks like it has been replaced with a little bit of less snow off to the southwest of Atlanta. But if you're heading to the northeast of Atlanta on I-85, looks like there's quite a bit of snow there as well. And up in Nashville, you got to be kidding me with that. 3-star snow has been happening all morning long. Looks like a little bit of a lull now since I was live over there on Bookface. You can see some of those reflectivities coming down a little bit. But another band is on its way in Nashville. And I thought it was pretty interesting. The NAM model did a pretty good job with the snowfall totals here in Oklahoma City. Definitely had several inches, probably 4 or 5 inches of snow across the Oklahoma City metro. And I think that the snowfall max was out here near Fort Smith and across some of the higher terrain of southeastern Oklahoma, down here, southeast Oklahoma into western Arkansas, down near Mena, Poto area. Likely had in excess of a foot. Little Rock changed over to all snow as well in the overnight hours. And we are breaking it down here live, folks. I want to show you some of these forecast models on what they showed. And it looks like the NAM model did a very good job the night before this snowfall event. Let me show you really quick what the NAM showed. And we also have some new tornado statistics that are getting finalized. And 2024 has been confirmed as the second most tornadoes in recorded history. So that is pretty incredible. So here was the NAM model coming out 6Z the night before this event, and it came in big with some of these snowfall totals across eastern Oklahoma into western Arkansas. And that was alarmed a lot of meteorologists out there. For me, I didn't just throw the model out as an outlier, but looked at trends in the other models and noticed that the other models too were showing an increase in the snowfall here across the Oklahoma City metro. 4.8 seems very reasonable for the NAM. Yes, some of these totals ended up being a little bit inflated, but not that much. You definitely had an excess of a foot in some of that higher terrain across southeast Oklahoma into western Arkansas. Then the 6C GFS model came out, and it seemed like it was a little bit more believable with some of these totals. Looked at the Kuchera snowfall ratios, a little bit less than a 10-to-1 ratio, but you still had those double-digit snowfall totals near Fort Smith and to the south. But it picked up on that warm nose at 700 millibars that held down some of the snowfall totals along the southern edge of that. That actually delayed the transition over to all snow near the Little Rock area. Some bright banding out there as there was some melting of the snowflakes, but still had some big time snowfall totals out there. But the NAM model definitely picked up on this very well with this banding that was happening from the high plains, Texas Panhandle, up through southwest into central Oklahoma. You can see a lot of these bands that are happening, Texas Panhandle up into western Oklahoma. A lot of that's related to some jet energy oriented out of the southwest and northeast, some of those ribbons of jet dynamics that'll come out. And that's why you had a lot of the banding structure to the snowfall there across western Oklahoma into central Oklahoma as well. But I wanted to look at the new snowfall totals coming up, those that are still to come. And I think that the greatest totals are going to be those that are banked up right up against the Appalachians, maybe in the Appalachians as well, up near the crest, up near some of the Smoky Mountain region could get quite a bit of snowfall. But looking at the latest GFS model, it definitely correctly shows a lot of those higher totals there banked up along the western slopes of the Appalachians. This storm is coming from west to east, and it makes sense that the Appalachians, that mountain range, would squeeze out that moisture, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So I think areas like Gatlinburg up there on the western slopes of the Appalachians are probably going to get a lot more snow. And up here across the higher terrain, across far western North Carolina, up near the Smokies, someone's going to get several inches of snow there. But there is a little bit of a drying effect to the east of the Appalachians. I was looking at the surface map, upstate South Carolina, Greenville, 30 over 15 right now, still 15 temperature dew point depressions. And so it is a little bit dry, and I think that's going to hold down some of the snowfall totals on the east side of the Appalachians out there, including the Piedmont. Not as much icing, I don't think, with this event, just because you don't have that warm nose over very cold air that's in place, that Arctic air that's in place. So it looks like maybe a couple inches of snow down near the Greenville area. That those dry conditions will definitely hold down some of those totals. And I feel like the NAM probably has a better handle than the other models on that dryness here to the east of the Appalachians. Probably only a couple of inches, 1 to 2 inches there along the Carolina Piedmont. Higher totals, though, up a little bit higher up in the mountains, up near the crest of the Appalachians, up near the crest of the Smokies as well. But you can see a lot of those higher totals on the western slopes of the Appalachians right there. Maybe even several inches up near Gatlinburg, up along the western slopes of the Appalachians. Probably still several more inches to come, even across western Tennessee, eastern Arkansas as well. A bulk of that snow fell in the overnight hours, but I do think that still even some more snow on the way out there. So let's take a look at a surface map. That's the best way to see what's happening at ground level. And there you can see some of the snow that's coming down. It looks like we still have that 4 or 3-star snow in the Augusta area as well. So I'm going to reload this quick, and it looks like that's still 3-star snow, 30 over 29. So basically the bottom number there, the green number, that is dew point. The top number is temperature. And when the snow first starts, a lot of times it'll fall into some dry air, and you have some greater spreads in your temperature and dew point. You can see that up near Greenville, South Carolina, has dried even more. 32 is the regular temperature. 13 is the dew point. Those are nearly 20-degree temperature dew point spreads to the north of that precipitation shield, north of I-85. Asheville, 28 over 13, very dry as well, anywhere to the east of those Appalachians. And that could definitely slow down the snowfall totals just a little bit, and just to the north of there, at least slow down the onset and probably the totals overall. But you can see near the I-85 corridor, I-20, you still have that 3-star snow in Augusta. Atlanta, 32 degrees. You have freezing rain right now, 32 over 30, but it's gradually starting to warm up with the heating of the day. So I bet a lot of the roads there in Atlanta proper are probably starting to go wet. And then to the northeast of there along I-85 up through Augusta, that's where your heavier snow is falling right now. 2-star snow up there. Far northeastern Georgia, you got visibility dropping below a mile across the northeastern part of the state, but you still have that moderate snow across the Nashville area right now, moderate snow, and you can confirm that on radar as well. But look at just to the northwest. Look at it up in Tennessee. There you got your 3-star snow, half-mile visibility up there. So still have that 3-star snow happening near the Nashville area, eastern Tennessee. And you're finally starting to get some snow up near Bryson City and Cherokee, 27 over 14. Still dry to the east of that crest of the Appalachians. Even dry on the western slopes, 26 over 15 in Gatlinburg right now. So what happens when that precipitation falls into that drier air, your dew point increases, your temperature falls, and they meet at what's called the wet bulb temperature. So that's how that precipitation can fall and bring those temperatures below freezing. And that's when you get snow across northern Georgia, starting to move into central South Carolina right now, folks. And I was working the western portion of that. And here you can see some of the conditions that I ended up finding here. This is on Highway 69 near the Lake Eufaula area. This is probably ground zero in terms of snowfall totals. Some of the greater totals are going to be happening near McAllister, up toward Lake Eufaula, but especially in that higher terrain to the south of Fort Smith, back around Poteau, Oklahoma. Likely we'll see it in excess of a foot somewhere out there. But I'm at Team Dominator headquarters. I came back here to Oklahoma, and we have several inches of snow on the ground here at Team Dominator headquarters. So This is the area where we base during tornado season. We've got the Dominators that are here. We got the Dominator 4 as well. We were experimenting with some new streaming technology yesterday, which I think did a pretty good job keeping that signal during some of those harder areas. And we also have some new information that has come out with snow, with the total tornado count in 2024. And let me show you this, as 2024 is now number 2 all time in recorded history in terms of the number of tornadoes, just behind 2004. That was a season that I also chased with greater than 1,800 tornadoes. 2024 came in at number 2, just ahead of 2011, which was also a season that I chased. But in 2004, I was 24 years old, over 1,800 tornadoes. That was a really active year for the Great Plains, and also active for hurricanes, tropical cyclones that were coming in. Hurricane Ivan had over 100 tornadoes, and similar this year, we also had Hurricane Beryl, we had Hurricane Milton that inflated those totals. It's very important during hurricane season to get those big tornado counts in the late summer into the fall, to get these big time seasons, because you can't just get the tornadoes during the spring and the summer and expect a record. In 2011, you had a majority of those tornadoes during spring. April had over 700 tornadoes alone. You had the super outbreak of April 27, 2011, the forgotten outbreak of April 15, 2011. 2008 was our first year on storm chasers. That was also a big year in the Plains and in Dixie Alley during a time when not many people chased in Dixie Alley. And you can definitely see these different tornado totals. Early January, we started off in the Florida Panhandle, and we were streaming live down there in early January. Let me bring that down a little bit, that epic pen. That little bump right there is that January event that started everything off. And we had those tornadoes that were coming in off the water, off the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of those were confirmed. And definitely had a ton of tornadoes there in early January. And then we had a little bit of a lull until late February into early March. We had that event in Illinois on the outskirts of Chicago on February 27. We had Alta Vista a few weeks later in March. And then all hell broke loose during peak season of April into May. We had that late April outbreak, April 26th. One of the more prolific tornado outbreaks I've ever chased. That was in eastern North Carolina into western Iowa. We had the Nelk Boys out there as well. A ton of tornadoes around the Omaha area into Iowa. And then in late May, another major uptick that happened late May into early June. A lot of those outbreaks in Oklahoma, Southern Plains. Oklahoma had 152 tornadoes, which was the most in recorded history for the state, ahead of 2019. So 2019 had a ton of tornadoes, number 2 for Oklahoma, but 2024 with 152 tornadoes, definitely major here in Oklahoma. Definitely the most active in recorded history for Oklahoma, and it's because of this slug that happened during April through May into early June, and that was what happened in the Great Plains, the heart of Tornado Alley. We did our seasonal outlook as well, and we predicted that Tornado Alley was going to go big, including those traditional areas like Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, and that's exactly what happened during the peak tornado season. As you can see there, April, May just went crazy, and we had a lot of those big outbreaks mid-April, mid-May that happened in traditional Tornado Alley. The Greenfield Tornado Day, we had the Windthorst Day, that moderate risk, and mid-May was also very active too, and early May. So we were down into northwest Texas getting a lot of those tornadoes that were happening. Westmoreland, Kansas, late April that happened, like April 27, April 30th was very active. And then we had the summertime tornadoes. This right here was Hurricane Beryl that came in, and it doesn't identify that in the Storm Prediction Center map here. But that uptick there in mid-July that you can see further up, that was Hurricane Beryl that had over 100 tornadoes as it came ashore. We probably should have chased the tornadoes with that hurricane as it came in, as we should have done with Milton there in the Florida Peninsula. But you just had a ton of tornadoes during Hurricane Beryl. And then we had the weak hurricane season, not very many hurricane landfalls to contribute to growth during that summer, late summer into fall peak hurricane season. But late hurricane season went crazy with those hurricane landfalls. Milton, definitely you can see there in Florida. Milton definitely put a dent in some of those numbers. Let me scroll that one off to the left so that you can see the late season, folks. That was Hurricane Milton, that pink circle. So late hurricane season, and Helene, you also had a number of tornadoes, and Milton right there across the southeast. And then you had November, which was active again across southern Tornado Alley. We had that EF3 just to the southeast side of Oklahoma City, but we had that QLCS event here in late December with like 80 tornadoes during one day in late December there. And let me scroll that over just a bit. There you can see that late December insanity that happened. December 26th, just to the north of Houston, we intercepted that tornado. Northeast of Houston in Navarro County, that rope tornado. And then December 28 had all those QLCS tornadoes. 80 confirmed tornadoes during that late December period. Sent that over the top. And that's what moved it in to number 2, folks, ahead of 2011. We saw 70 tornadoes during 2011, and this year saw 96 tornadoes, almost to 100 tornadoes during 2024. So we're going to do another video with our seasonal outlook for 2025. We think that Dixie Alley is going to come alive in a big way. That is the central U.S., southern U.S., southeast. I think that high pressure is going to break down. We've got La Nina that's building into the tropical Pacific. We've got warm water in the North Pacific as well. And I think that's going to consolidate the polar front jet. And we'll likely see a severe weather season very similar to 2011 coming up in 2025. But you can definitely see the whole story of the season. Even late August, we had a lot of those tornadoes in the northern plains, August into September. They didn't really put a dent in some of the tornado count up there near Mound City because that was just one storm that was producing. But these tropical cyclones will definitely move the needle for your seasonal tornado count. And you can look back here at when Barrow came ashore, over 100 tornadoes as that moved up northward through the lower Mississippi River Valley. A ton of tornadoes up there. So those tropical cyclones will do a number for your seasonal tornado counts, and that's why you got to factor them into your seasonal outlook. So we could have anticipated the emergence of La Nina at the end of this period during summer, and definitely predicted this active hurricane season for tornadoes, including mid-July and also Helene and when Milton came in, and then you got the late December stuff as well coming in there. So there are your annual tornado. There's your annual tornado account for this record-breaking 2024 season, folks. And now we are tracking southern U.S. snowfall. The back edge starting to come through Arkansas. Little Rock still getting some bands of heavy snow. It's a lot more banded as you're getting a little bit more of the dry air coming in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. But across Memphis, still getting some pretty decent snow up there. Memphis area, 40 dBz snow coming through the Memphis metro. 40 plus dBz snow about to come into Memphis right now. So look at this major area of snow just to the southwest of Memphis. That's coming in as well, folks. This is some big time snow out there, 40, 45 dBz snow, and it's not any bright banding. That radar image that I showed you initially down near Augusta, that is classic bright banding action happening. Out here, this is bright banding, folks. When you get up to those like 50, 60 dBz, that's when you get a little bit of those water droplets on snowflakes, making them a lot more reflective than they otherwise would be. Yeah, there is some renewed Santa Ana conditions expected today, so we got to keep a close eye on that as well, but there could be some stronger northerly winds through some of those gaps in the terrain, Southern California. I got this hat at Love's gas station. I love these hats as well. They definitely keep you very warm, but there is some classic bright banding happening there. Look at that. And you can definitely see the dryness in central South Carolina, Columbia. Notice how a lot of that precipitation is not reaching the ground yet. So you're still wet bulbing. There's the radar site, that little black hole there on the southwest side of Columbia. And you could just see no precipitation near the radar site. So if you start at the radar site and go distance away from it, you're actually increasing in altitude above the ground. And so you're actually seeing this precipitation, which is falling just above the ground, but isn't quite reaching the ground yet in the Columbia area or off to the north. So that's why I'm telling my mom, I think this event is going to underperform across the upstate South Carolina. You can see that dry air starting to erode a little bit, though, on the south side, a little closer to that precipitation. But this is all because of that dry, low-level environment. You're just not getting any of those snowflakes reaching the ground near the radar site there in upstate South Carolina. And there's all your precipitation off to the south, down near Greenwood, some of those amethyst mining areas a little bit south, upstate South Carolina, getting that snow off to the south, but it's got to come across the Appalachians here, and you have a little bit more dry air just to the east. I think that's going to hold down some of those totals across the mountains there of western North Carolina. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this live emergency update. We're breaking down the snow happening there and some of the models, and also giving some respect to the NAM model that did such a good job with that forecast. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this live emergency update. We have a lot more planned coming up for this. Thank you. Also, Team Dominator.